Hello everyone, welcome to today's lesson on how to play musical instruments. Today we will be focusing on the snare drum, and this is a very unique instrument. I love this instrument because although it is so minimalistic, you can do so much with it. And today we will be learning proper grips, different places you can play on the snare drum, and how to maintain your snare drum. I hope you enjoy, and let's get on with the video. So, first of all, you need to know how to set up your snare drum, so that it will sound pleasing and you won't break it in the process. So you always need to make sure when you're sitting, you make a 90-degree angle with your knees, so your legs right here are flat, and you go down at a 90-degree angle. So if your chair is too high, you can always adjust it, or too low. So make sure it's that nice angle so your snare drum is about hip height. Now, any percussionist would know that the most important tool for a snare drum is the drum key. It's like a little screwdriver, and we'll be using this a lot today. So we've got the drum head right here, and around on the edges we have little areas where we can tighten the snare drum to make it a different tone. So right now, if I just hit on the snare drum, you can hear it's like a higher tone, and we can loosen up a few. There we go. It's already slightly lower tone, so it changes the tone and changes like the snare drums are slightly flexible, so you can change how tight your sound is or how loose your sound is. So I'm just gonna tighten these up again. So once we get this nice and tight, that sounds amazing. And so the drum key will be one of your major tools, and you will always want to keep it with your snare drum because you'll be using it a lot. So the number one part is always adjustment, making sure it is level, making sure it is comfortable to play with, because you cannot make good music unless you are in a comfortable environment. So this is the most important part. Now we'll get to the actual drumstick holding. Here I've got 2 drumsticks. Now, if you watched my previous video about the marimba playing, you will remember the perpendicular T hand formation, where you basically put your thumb on like this, and then your pointer finger perpendicularly on the other side, and then you have that flicking motion, and so your other fingers will basically guide where it moves, but they're not actually grabbing onto it. They're just basically keeping it within that area. So you'll have that with both your hands, and you will be keeping a tight grip with those 2 fingers, your thumb and your pointer finger, and then the rest will just be keeping in line that nice flicking motion. A lot of it's in the wrists. So this will be your classic snare drum position. This is what most people use, and this is how you will always, most of the time, see snare drummers play. And that flicking motion is important because you need to be able to lift right off of the snare drum again to maintain sound. So that sounds way better than, right? If you move your whole arm, it's gonna waste energy and it's not gonna sound good. So with that in mind, like this, that brings us to rolling, because when you think of snare drum, you think of rolling right away, like, oh, the snare drum roll, everyone, like, yeah. So everyone's been wondering, how do you do that? Like, do you move your arms like really fast like that? That was stupid, right? So you barely move your arms. It's all in the wrists, and basically the fastest way of doing it, you've got to time it perfectly, and you've got to just let it basically bounce off, like vibrate and bounce off really quickly. And the fastest way to learn that is just play steady eighth notes and vibrate the sticks each time you hit the snare drum, and lift off really quickly, and you'll get a nice snare drum roll. So just play those eighth notes and let off very quickly, and this is how it sounds. Now, if we speed it up, it sounds more like a snare roll. So practice makes perfect, obviously. So the faster your eighth notes, the better your snare will roll. Now, this brings us to the next grip. Back in the 1800s, you'd remember in the Civil War and in the Revolutionary War, they would always have the drummer boy, and you'd see those paintings and stuff. And also in the military now, also, you will most likely see this grip right here. And this is a traditional German grip, and this is when the snare drum was at an angle because of how the shoulder strap would fit onto your body, and how the snare drum would lie in position and result of that. So they would have to have one snare stick higher than the other. So they'd have this one in between your middle and your ring finger. Basically these two fingers on the bottom and these two fingers on the top, like this, about 1/3 of the way up the snare stick, and then your thumb just wraps around. And basically that's another method. You'll see lots of people, lots of drummers use this position, hand position, nowadays as well. So those are the two main snare drum hand positions, and we've learned about rolling. So now it's just mainly about posture and stance. You don't want to be slunched over. You want to be nice and erect. And now we'll get to the playing part. So basically, there are lots of different sounds that you can make with this snare drum. In the middle, it sounds more snare drummy, I guess, because the snare hits right in the middle. Now, once you move out farther, you get more of a higher and more hollow sound. So you can go from over to, and there's also like the rim shot, and then you've got you can hit the sides and stick shot, and the one I like doing is this one and this one, which gets very, very loud. So you can make so many different sounds with the snare drum, which is amazing. And you can just combine those to make so many different rhythms with all the different ways of playing the snare drum. And it's basically a percussion instrument. That's the awesome thing about it. You can use it in so many different ways, and you can use your creativity with that. So however way you want your snare drum to sound, you can manipulate the surface. You can play in different parts, in different areas. So one way to do that is you can mute the drum a bit more. You can use a phone, you can use anything heavier flat. I've got this nice little electronic light or something. It's just nice and heavy and flat. And you can put that on your snare drum to dampen the sound, and you get more of a marching band sound out of a concert band snare. So you can do stuff like that to manipulate the sound that comes out of your snare drum. And this is very important when you want different sounds. And you can turn the snare off and get a nice. You can get so many different sounds, and that's the amazing part of the snare drum. So just keep that in mind when you're playing the snare drum, and it's an amazing instrument. It's up there with the marimba. I love the snare drum, and that's why I play it, and it's the most important part of the drum set as well. So I hope you've learned a lot out of this video, and I hope you will go and do great things on the snare drum, and have a great day. See ya.